Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Tam. He is the head of the Dallas office for Keystone Partners, where they help people perform at their best through leadership development and outplacement services. I have Dr. Jenna. She's a performance consultant, mental wellness specialist, and has 13 years of military experience. And I have Simon Coles. He's the CEO and founder of Amorpha, which is a software company in the UK. He is also involved in a project called Better Conversations, where they are making clean language accessible to the business world. The question I have for you today: what is the difference between a conversation and a fight? A difficult conversation and a fight. Jim, kick us off.
A fight is about who's right. A conversation or a difficult conversation about what is right. I think if you take it, people tend to take it personally, then it becomes a fight. But when you're trying to share, difference of opinion and be respectful of that person's position, then that is a difficult conversation. Right? I always think about where's that line. So as long as I don't think personally, it's never a fight.
Okay.
When you have a difficult conversation, it's about bringing that mutual understanding of each other, versus a fight is like my ego over your ego and who's going to win this. So the overall end goal is very, very different, although we don't realize that in the moment, right? But when you can have a difficult conversation with somebody and come to a greater understanding, like that's not necessarily a fight. That was just us bringing out or confronting difficult things.
I think the difference is planning. I think you can plan to have a difficult conversation and you can navigate yourself around some difficult stuff. If you go in without planning or trip over some difficult stuff and emotions get involved, then you're going to end up with a fight. I don't think most people would plan to have a fight. And I think most fights are avoidable in emotionally mature adults.
That's true. So for me, if I'm in a difficult conversation, like I can feel this is tough, but we're in it and we're trying to understand, and you're trying to understand me and I'm trying to understand you, and we're being careful with each other's feelings and it matters. When it becomes a fight, it no longer matters. I'm not trying to understand. I'm just trying to tell you what I think. And that escalation, that point where it's no longer, I care about you and what you think, even though it's hard for me, that's when the line gets crossed, is when it becomes a fight, when I don't care about that anymore. And
it's about what you say, not what you hear.
So I know for me, physically, I get very tense and very much, okay, I'm in this, this is now a battle. And I know that at that point, it's time, okay, call the time out. This is not going to be productive. For you, how do you notice it? And then what do you do?
Yeah, I think Jen used the right words about ego, right? I think if you're feeling personally attacked, you can't help but react. But if you are allowed to check yourself, is this a personal attack or is this just a difference in opinion? And if we can remind ourselves to separate the two, then I think it probably would not escalate into a fight.
The emotions is what causes it to become a fight. So pausing, even me as a mother, I have 2 kids, will tell them, pause. It's that simple moment of, okay, pause, let's check in. Is this escalating? As soon as emotions become involved, then there's that communication, there's barriers. And so we're not able to necessarily communicate through those barriers once we escalate like that.
Yeah, I think you also stop listening at that point.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things we found in Better Conversations is if you're not in a good state, don't talk. It's just as simple as that. There's no point. Get yourself into a better state and then go and have the conversation.
I said that in a presentation I gave just yesterday. If somebody is in an escalated state where they're not going to be able to listen, just don't have the conversation. It's just not worth the trouble. Like that meme says, don't try to explain yourself to someone who's dead set on trying to misunderstand you.
Yeah, I think also in a fight, there's a winner and a loser. A difficult conversation, you can have one, but you can also agree to disagree. But a fight, somebody has to win, and that's never pleasant.
And I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten much better at heading off things that are going down that path, especially on social media. Like I don't get involved in, if you want to have a conversation about interesting things and be like, oh, I think differently, or I disagree with that. Absolutely. I'm in for that. If you just want to scream and yell and stomp your feet, no, I'm out, block. I'm not dealing with that.
I think there's some people, just by being around them, that conversation might lead to that just based on their personality. And so you're much more prepared. Like Simon says, you go into it with a little preparation and maybe knowing if this person just wants to pick a fight with me or if they actually want to maybe grow from it and learn something from it. If you know their personality and that's just kind of that type of person, then you can like back away, step out, do the things you need to do to not engage in that.
Sometimes you just have to let someone be wrong, which I think is really hard. Simon, I see you thinking over there.
We all at times in our lives need to have difficult conversations, but I think fights are optional, if that makes sense. You can go through your life not having fights if you have the right people around you and the right sort of steadiness of the way you approach people in the world. And I think probably as we get older, we probably have less fights, ideally.
Ideally. I think Dr. Jenna was right that it comes back to the ego thing. If you feel personally attacked and you have to defend yourself and you're not confident in yourself and you have to go in, then you create a fight. But if you get to a point in your life where you're confident in yourself, someone else can be all whatever. And you'd be like, no, that's not a thing. I'm not doing that. Or you
just catch yourself and go, I'm not emotionally competent to have this conversation. I'm going to stop because things that come out of my mouth will not be constructive and we need to take a break.
That's assuming you're like speaking to an immature person, right, Simon? Some people fight dirty, right? When they find themselves losing an argument, they'll bring up something else, just so
I call that kitchen sinking.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that from now on, Robyn. But yeah, it's true. Like when they found themselves losing, they'll bring something else. It could be 10 years ago, but they'll bring it up.
It's a great way of them letting you know that they shouldn't be in your life. Certainly from a business perspective and things like that, I think that you can hold people to a standard of emotional maturity and ability to have difficult conversations. I'm stunned sometimes at the sort of level of emotional blackmail and that sort of thing that companies tolerate.
And I feel like with mature adults, you can say, this is really going to be hard. This is going to be a tough conversation for me, but I feel like it's important for our relationship or for whatever. And so can you help me? Can we go through this? Can we figure this out?
Yeah, there's some level of kind of teamwork, I think, that happens. Not necessarily that you're on the same team, but that you appreciate the fact that you're both learning and growing through it.
If I care about you enough to have a difficult conversation and you matter to me, if I don't care, I just won't have it. I'll just walk away.
But can fights be one-sided? As in one person could be coming into that ready to rumble or lose their state and go for it, whereas a difficult conversation, you both need to be able to control your state.
So I do think that someone can come into a conversation ready to rumble and the other person can just go, yeah, we're not doing that and walk away. And then you don't have a fight. You can't have a one-sided fight. That's not a thing. But what they can do is that they can become a third-party triangulation thing. And that becomes manipulation and gossip. And it can get really ugly in that way, which is a whole different problem.
But if someone's determined to fight, I don't think, no matter what your skills, I don't think you can stop that from becoming a fight. I mean, I know there's some NLP techniques about matching their emotional level and all that sort of stuff, but it's pretty advanced stuff, isn't it? I don't think mere mortals could do that.
If someone wants to fight with you, your options are walk away or fight. There's not a whole lot of middle ground.
Well, I mean, there are these good de-escalation techniques, right? The decibels, right? When people start getting higher and higher in their pitch, it's a fight. But when people are a little bit more calm, then it can be a discussion.
Well, too, and then you just have those high conflict personalities of people that, whether it's in person and you can notice the decibels increasing, sometimes though it's over email and not necessarily that verbal or face-to-face interaction. And people can do it that way too. So it's those moments where you're like, okay, this isn't worth my energy. No matter what is being said, whether it's verbal, nonverbal, it's not worth my energy and I have to protect my peace through it. So I think it's us being able to manage also what's happening in ourselves in those moments to be able to know I'm not going to get anywhere with this. Just walk away, like Dr. Robyn said.
I do think that, and we don't have time to get into it, but there is the one-sided fight where someone on social media is tearing you down and attacking you and damaging your status in whatever way that looks like. And there's not a lot of control over that. I was reading something about that recently where these hate groups get on and they start attacking people and they're ruining people's businesses and leaving one-star reviews en masse. And I think that's a whole separate problem than a conversation, a difficult conversation versus a fight. But I think that does happen.
Wow.
So that is our 10 minutes. So I'm going to cut us off there. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I don't think it was difficult, but I do think it was interesting. So I thank you very much. And I look forward to speaking to each of you again really soon.
Thank you so much.